Ohio State is finally about to stop treating punt returns like an administrative task. Ryan Day has been making steady improvements in 2024 and 2025 in special teams, but the Buckeyes are now preparing to unleash the most explosive Buckeye return game we have seen in the Ryan Day era. Now, I know that's a big opinion to have when we don't even know officially who will return the first punt of the season yet. Ohio State could still open the year with Brandon Innis back there, and fans will immediately think it's more of a secure the football and play it safe type of experience. But the Buckeyes have made it a point to be more explosive in 2026, and they have a few key players who can make that happen on special teams. Of course, everyone knows about Legend Bay, but people need to know about Phillip Bell. The transfer Devin McCuin has real speed, and don't forget about the guys on defense. I'm talking Jermaine Matthews Jr. and, dare I say, Dom Kelly, or Dominic Kelly, but they call him Dom Kelly on the team. He could play a big role too. Those are not players you put on the field merely to wave for a fair catch, and that's not going to happen as much with a new coach who's actually dedicated to as a special teams coordinator. There are multiple explosive athletes competing for the job, and a person from inside the Woody was telling me that he is challenging the conservative thinking that has defined this part of the program for too many years now. So in this episode, I'm going to show you why the return game may become one of Ohio State's most overlooked weapons in 2026, which players have the best chance to win those jobs, and why this decision tells us something bigger about Ryan Day's championship philosophy, because that is not just this is not just about gaining an extra 7 yards on a punt. It's about whether Ohio State is finally willing to use all of its talent aggressively in all areas of the game. So I'm John with BuckeyeHuddle.com, where you'll find deep Ohio State coverage, elite recruiting intel, and none of the toxic noise that surrounds college football. Check us out over there on the message boards with Kevin Noon, Mark Givler, Connor Smith, TJ Warner, and more. So here are the reasons why we can safely say Ohio State is about to unleash more on special teams this year, especially in the return game. A big one is that Ohio State has a new special teams coach or new special teams coordinator, and Robby Discher, and that matters because this isn't just a coaching change that creates the opportunity to reevaluate. It shows that Ryan Day wants to dedicate more time, energy, and resources into the special teams. He's going to bring a fresh pair of eyes and be that voice for Ryan Day to start thinking outside the box a little bit more, because one of the most talented rosters in the country should have explosive players returning kicks and punts who can score at any moment they're on the field and have the ball. It cannot only be the returner's responsibility to catch the football safely, just because anytime an Ohio State player touches the ball, you got to make sure that you have it safe. No, you got to invoke fear in your opponent. And let's be honest, since 2020, this isn't 2021. The offense back then was so good, you could afford to just catch the punt and let C.J. Stroud go crazy. Although the offense is still extremely talented, Ryan Day's offensive philosophy has changed a little bit with less snaps and more efficiency, which is not beloved by most fans, but I think it would be accepted more if the offense and special teams were more explosive. So that means the return game is simply no longer a place to only avoid mistakes, because fear of failure wastes more time than a bad try. It cannot just avoid disaster and let the regular offense take over. That approach is understandable, and it'll be something every fan will debate if a muff punt happens, and the coaches will too, since they hate turnovers as well as much as the fans do. Especially special teams turnovers, they're painful because they often give an opponent the football in a scoring territory without its offense doing really anything to earn it, and the defense hates that. But there is a difference between protecting the football and removing all aggression from the position. Ohio State should never be reckless. It should also never be scared, because as much as I am all in on special teams improving this year, obviously it is not everything. National title winners routinely can't say the word for some reason, routinely rank across a wide spectrum in special teams, especially metrics proving that an elite return game is more of an accelerator rather than a strict prerequisite for a championship. So there has to be a kind of median between the safe, fair catches and the aggressively returning anything that's kicked to you. All right, imagine a new Ferrari. You just bought a new Ferrari, but you can't buy it and then refuse to take it out for its first drive or take it out of first gear because you're afraid something will scratch the paint. But you also don't need to go out street racing with it every other weekend, right? Ohio State has Ferrari speed with some of the fastest and most dynamic players and athletes in the country. If those players can be trusted with the ball, they need to be given chances. And that brings us to one guy who has to get a chance, and that's Legend Bay. One of the most overlooked weapons on Ohio State's roster may be true freshman Legend Bay. All Ohio State fans should want to see him involved in the return game this year. Many people around the program are still mentioning him as a player they hope earns the job. And it makes perfect sense. Bay brings the type of open field explosiveness that can turn one missed tackle into 6 points. The concern is not talent, it's trust. Has he earned the trust yet? Which you really need to earn under Ryan Day to return punts as a freshman, because only 2 true freshmen have ever returned punts under Ryan Day, and it's a pretty good company to be in if you can join it. The 2 are Garrett Wilson in 2019 and Jackson Smith-Njigba in 2020. Regardless, needless to say, that's some pretty elite and explosive company for Legend Bay to be in if he returns punts. And that is exactly why fall camp matters for all this. If Bay proves he can make the correct decisions, field the ball cleanly, and protect it through contact, Ohio State suddenly has a new returner opponents must plan around. And even if he does not start the season with the full-time job, he could become a situational weapon. Use him on kickoffs, give him selected punt return opportunities, let him earn more responsibilities. Ohio State does not need to choose between ball security and explosiveness. The goal should be able to find a player capable of providing you both. But let me know what you think in the comments. Can Legend Bay be the main returner for Ohio State this season? Would love to hear your thoughts on that. For me, Bay is probably the most exciting option because he represents exactly what I want from my returner. He is not the only one option that could be. The perceived safer option is Brandon Inniss. Pretty much everyone likes Brandon Inniss, people on the team. A lot of fans respect him, like him. He's a team captain, gives his heart and soul to the team, and he's a great blocker out there as well. He's a great teammate, but he's not the most explosive player. But I do think people make mistakes thinking he has no upside at all, because Innis is an experienced player. He has been back to return nearly 100 kicks and punts combined in his career. He understands the expectations. He has been through Ohio State practices, knows how to communicate, and is less likely to be overwhelmed by any moment that's out there. And when you look at his career numbers, it shows. Brandon Innis is one of the most experienced returners in all of college football. His 40 career returns is 4th most in the country among current players. He's been involved in nearly 100 return opportunities, touching the ball an exact 97 times on punt and kick returns. That includes 31 returns, 49 punt fair catches, 9 kickoff returns, and 8 kickoff fair catches. Across all those opportunities, he's only muffed 1 ball, and he did fumble once last year against Washington and a punt return back then. But is that enough to say Innis should be the permanent answer, or is he just the bridge until one of the younger, more explosive players proves they can be trusted? That distinction really matters. The first player back there in week 1 does not necessarily have to be the player returning punts in November. Ohio State can start conservatively without remaining conservative all season, and that is where this competition gets really interesting. Devin McCuin was identified as another player who deserves consideration. He has speed, experience in the receiver room, and the type of quickness that could translate to open field opportunities. Phillip Bell might be an even more intriguing possibility. Bell was described as the most explosive and strong at approximately 6'1", 200 pounds. That combination matters because kickoff returns are not just about speed, they are violent. A kick returner often has to break arm tackles, run through contact, and maintain balance before they ever reach the open grass. Bell could potentially offer the power of a bigger receiver without sacrificing the burst Ohio State wants. He was specifically mentioned as a candidate for both kick and punt return. The versatility could be a valuable piece because Ohio State does not have to use the same player for each job. Punt returning and kickoff returning are different skills. A punt returner needs elite judgment, short area quickness, the ability to create immediately after securing the ball. A kick returner has a little bit more runway. He can build up some speed, follow the blocks, attack a designated lane. Maybe Bay becomes more of your punt returner. Maybe Bell handles more of your kickoff returning. Maybe Innis provides the most dependable option early on. The key point is that Ohio State suddenly has choices here with different roles and different responsibilities each player can have. And choices create competition. Competition creates separation, and two of those competition options have something in common with our two most recent players who took returns for touchdowns. All right, Ohio State cannot ignore two of their best return options simply because they play defense. Jermaine Matthews was an excellent returner man at Winton Woods when he was in high school. Dom Kelly has the athletic ability to be considered as well. Caleb Johnson had the return ability, and he scored the punt return touchdown against Indiana in 2024. Lorenzo Styles Jr., another DB, scored a kickoff return for a touchdown versus UCLA last year. Those things are not coincidences. Return jobs are often treated like an extension of the wide receiver depth chart, but the ball does not care whether the player meeting it plays offense or defense. Some of the best returners are defensive backs because the position requires many of the same traits. Vision, instincts, short area acceleration, confidence in traffic, the ability to react without hesitation. And they don't often have the ball in their hands, so if they get on special teams, there is more urgency for them. There's more urgency for them to take advantage of every opportunity when they get the ball in their hands. Now, Ohio State should not put a starting corner in unnecessary danger merely to manufacture excitement, right? The staff must consider workload, health, and defensive importance. But the question should be asked: if Jermaine Matthews Jr. is your best returner on the roster, should he lose the job just because he's a starter? And the answer to that is absolutely not. The return competition should be open to every player who is capable of protecting the football and creating good field position. Ohio State has too many elite athletes to limit the search before it even begins. But what do you think? Like the video and let me know in the comments. Should Ohio State refuse to play players at returner who just because they're starters? Would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments. For me, that is one of the changes I hope Robby Discher makes. Erase the starter and the position labels as requirements. Do not begin by asking which receiver should return punts or which player is not on offense all that much and so he can return punts. Ask who the best returner is. Then determine whether his other responsibilities or whatever his role responsibilities are practical for that assignment. Jermaine Matthews deserves a look because he has done it before. Dom Kelly deserves a look because he has the movement skills, the athleticism to do that, and the larger principle matters more than any specific player. Special teams should be constructed by the entire roster, not the leftover portion of the roster. For championship programs, special teams cannot be the department where backups stand until the regular units return to the field. Yes, you can earn it on special teams, but you got to earn it by making it on special teams as well. It doesn't have to be the best in the country, but it has to be an actual advantage for you against other teams. The game that keeps coming to mind was in 2024 when Michigan, who was nowhere near as good of a team as Ohio State, kept pinning the Buckeyes deep in their own territory with their punts. The offense couldn't drive 90 yards just to create 3 points. You flip the field by 15 or 20 yards and the play calling completely changes. The defense becomes less aggressive. Arthur Smith has more of a playbook available. A quarterback does not have to operate from on the heels of his own goal line. And the offense does not need a perfect 12-play drive to even put up 3 points. And Ryan Day knows that. He has seen that. That's why Ryan Day's biggest special teams change may not be just be a new returner. Sorry. Ryan Day's biggest special teams change may not just be a new returner. It's about blocking punts as well. For years, Ohio State often appeared to treat punt returns like kind of like risk management exercises as far as catching the ball and not hitting the punter. Catch the ball, don't get roughing the punter, avoid disaster. Give the offense the possession and go from there. But championship football is not only about avoiding mistakes. It's also about forcing the opponent to defend every inch of the field in every phase of the game. Ohio State does not only need dangerous returners, they need dangerous guys on the line of scrimmage who can block punts too. Like Caden Curry last year, the threat of a punt block can open things up for your returners as well. That is a major development that needs to be considered as well. You have Legend Bay, Phillip Bell, Brandon Innis, Devin McCuin, Jermaine Matthews Jr., and Dom Kelly in the conversation to return the ball. But the Buckeyes have enough athletes to threaten the punter as well. This is not only skill position guys. You need to have guys who can go after the punter too. No one's going to be able to predict who that guy is, but Ohio State is working very hard on finding him because Discher is known for an aggressive, fearless philosophy that prioritizes putting starter-level talent on special teams units rather than just the backups. His schemes excel at finding mathematical or alignment leverage against opposing protection units, forcing low punting angles or clean penetration through the line, which ultimately helps the returner. That is the big picture impact. Ohio State's margin for error is often small in the games that define the season, and as Indiana showed us in the national championship game, a well-timed block punt can be the difference in the biggest game of your program's history. While Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback, his legendary touchdown dive became the defining image of the national championship game for Indiana, it was this masterclass of special teams and field position late in the third quarter that gave them the most overlooked play of the game, possibly of the entire season. The sequence began with Indiana holding a slim 10-7 lead late in the third quarter. They were operating from their own 40-yard line after they forced Miami to punt from their own red zone. However, the Hurricanes' fierce defensive front tightened up, and on first down, Akeem Mesidor took a devastating Miami sack on Fernando Mendoza and pushed Indiana back. Second down, a gritty small run for a few yards put Indiana in better position, but still third and long, and on third and long, they had an incomplete pass that left Indiana in fourth and long. But Cignetti didn't panic. Instead of forcing a risky play, Indiana forced Miami to start from inside their own 20 for the second straight drive. The special teams unit executed flawlessly, launching a high hanging kick that pinned Miami deep, forcing them to start their drive on their own 7-yard line. Backed up against their own goal line, Miami's offense found itself suffocated by the Hoosiers' defense. Although they moved the ball 9 yards to their own 16-yard line, they faced a brutal 4th and 1, and Miami's coach Mario Cristobal decided against a risky go-for-it play in a 10-7 game late in the third quarter, and he went ahead and attempted a punt from his own red zone. He sent his punter out there for a long developing punt to try and flip the field and give him a big punt. And it was exactly what Indiana was waiting for. As Joyce, the Miami punter, took the snap, Indiana brought a heavy rush. Defensive lineman Mikel Kamara just sped right by. He timed it perfectly, exploded off the line of scrimmage, blew by Miami's secondary protection, and Kamara launched himself into the punter's punt, I guess, whatever you call it, meeting the ball almost exactly at the same millisecond it hit Joyce's foot. The ball thudded heavily off Kamara and ricocheted backwards into the end zone. And of course, linebacker Isaiah Jones trailed it perfectly and was able to dive on the loose ball for an Indiana touchdown. In a matter of seconds, Indiana surged ahead by 10 points, 17-7, turning Hard Rock Stadium into Hoosier chaos. The touchdown proved to be a critical cushion that Indiana needed because Miami, desperate and backed into a corner, immediately responded. In their next 2 ensuing drives, the Hurricanes marched down the field for back-to-back touchdowns. Without the 10-point safety net provided by Kamara's block, Miami's furious late-game rally likely would have put Indiana away and won the game for Miami. But instead, the special teams miracle kept the Hoosiers afloat, setting the stage for for the final historic victory. That's why Robby Discher is so important for Ohio State. And that's why you play your starters on special teams, your best players, which leads me to my prediction for who will return kicks for Ohio State in 2026. So first, I think we're going to see Brandon Inniss begin the season as the primary punt returner because the staff trusts him. Phillip receives a serious opportunity on kickoffs, and then Legend Bay gets involved gradually. And if he can keep the ball security where it needs to be, his role will continue to grow as the season continues. I also believe at least one defensive back receives legitimate return game work as well during camp. Even if he does not ultimately win the job, I think that Robby Discher will look for that. And by the second half of the season, Ohio State's return units will look more aggressive than they have in recent years. That does not mean every punt will be returned. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. Sometimes the correct decision is a fair catch. Sometimes the correct decision is to let the ball go. Smart aggression still includes restraint. But the default goal should no longer be to merely survive the play. The goal should be to win it. So let me know in the comments, who should Ohio State use as their primary punt returner? Brandon Inniss, Legend Bay, Phillip, or are you one of the defensive guys? Jermaine Matthews Jr., Devin McCuin, at wide receiver, or Dom Kelly, or somebody else? Let me know, because whoever wins that competition may become one of the most important hidden players on the roster. And the return game is not the only part of Ohio State changing behind the scenes. The Buckeyes are also installing a new linebacker scheme that could completely change how that defense attacks opposing quarterbacks. If you're on YouTube, click the link in the video right now for the full breakdown of what Ohio State is changing, which linebackers benefit most, and why the new system could become the key to the entire defense. Click that video and I'll meet you over there.